Well, in last week's video, I mentioned that we are beginning the journey of getting to know a little bit more about this Yellowstone Park stagecoach. It came in, and I was thinking it was an 11-passenger coach. We looked at the body framing and the undercarriage. Well, when these came in, the owner of the coach that I restored brought me some records from Isabel Haynes from Montana State University in Bozeman, and it's referred to, if I remember correctly, the Burlington collection. And it is through the process of going through some of these old files from Elizabeth Haynes. She evidently was the one that paid the bills and kept the records on which coaches were bought when and in what years. So some of this writing is evidently in pencil and it's not real bold, but the first record that we have is in 1903. And in the middle of the page, we see that she purchased 6 11-passenger stagecoaches at $483 a piece. And then there are 6 serial numbers starting at 22,886 going down to 22,891. And this is also where we see that they purchased 2 17-passenger coaches at $653 a piece. So this is the first record that we have in the 22,000s. Now the number on the body, if we look closely, is prior to this 1903 number. And it's a little difficult to read it, but if I take a little piece of sandpaper and kind of scuff it off, and then if I just gently wet that, you can see that it stands out pretty clear. It is 2282. So it's predating the records here of 1903 from Isabel Haynes. And even though the body is pretty well rotted down, there is enough there in the framework and the remnants of the seats that we know this was an 11-passenger Yellowstone Park stagecoach. But just exactly when this body was purchased, pre-1903, we don't really know that yet. So the next record we have is June 1st of 1907. And toward the bottom of the page, we see that she has an expense column that she purchased 4 11-passenger stagecoaches at $585 a piece. And we have the numbers here, and those numbers are 25, 121, 122, 123, and 124. So now we're in the 25,000 mark. So these being 25,000 numbers, we're getting closer to this number on the undercarriage. And if we look close at it, this is the iron that controls the kingpin for the fifth wheel, and this shows 26,957. So we're getting a little closer, but I'm guessing it's either in the latter part of 1907, possibly into early 1908. But on the next page is 1908, and we see that she bought 7 11-passenger coaches. And there are some names and some serial numbers here. And we're in the 25,5 area down to the last one, which is 25,536. So in 1908, we're not quite into that 26,000 number yet. So if we continue on, we're up into April 1st, 1909. And toward the bottom of this page, we see that they purchased 8 11-passenger coaches. Now it's $600 a piece. And the numbers she has noted here are 25,943 all the way up to 25,950. And we also see the names here, Golden Gate, Silver Gate. Not sure what the next one is. See a Jupiter, Minerva, Cleopatra, Gallatin. Not real good at reading her handwriting, but here we have 8 more. But we're still not into the 26,000s as of April 1st, 1909. And also here on April 23rd of 1908, we see an interesting entry, the top entry, for 2 bodies for coach Idaho and Montana. That was not suitable for park something rather. So evidently they had to buy 2 bodies to replace Idaho and Montana. So next on the list, she has March 4th of 1910, and she has 5 8-passenger coaches for $550 a piece. And we have the Congress, Turquoise, Cleopatra, and it looks like maybe Appaloosa, but she doesn't give the serial numbers. And actually from here on out, there aren't any serial numbers given, but we're getting close, maybe in this 1910 era. And then on the next page, we have an entry on August 2nd of 1910, and we seem to have the same entries, or maybe a second payment on the same 5 8-passenger coaches for $550 apiece, because here it looks like we have also Congress, Turquoise, Cleopatra, and this other one is this black sand maybe. I'm not really sure what these are. But I think maybe that was the final payment on these same 5 8-passenger coaches, August 2nd, 1910. Then July 8th, 1912, toward the bottom of the page, we have another entry here also for 5 8-passenger coaches at $565 apiece. We have granite, lava, sintar, maybe calcite, and then we also show on June 11th, 5 8-passenger coaches, and we have granite, opal, jasper, basalt, and quartz, also at $565 apiece. But now she's not entering in the serial numbers, so this is where we get a little bit lost, but we've got to be in this area close, 1910, 11, 12, guessing. And the top of the entry on November 23rd, 1914, we see a check written to Abbott Downing Company by one new 8-passenger coach body for the coach Garnett. So evidently Garnett got wrecked and had to be replaced. And then the next entry down here, it looks like by expenses of replacing damage, cost, and change of the driver while at something at Fountain Hotel when something, fourth trip, August 1914. So I have a little difficulty reading her handwriting, but here we see a body replaced and some damage done at the Fountain Hotel. And then we have an interesting entry, October 10th of 1915. And this isn't so much about coaches, but you can see in the middle that they bought some hay from a Joseph Christensen in Driggs, Idaho. 265 bales, 314 bales, 269 bales, all at $10 a ton. $10 a ton in 1915. And we have some other entries here, and it shows up in November 11th of 1915, again toward the bottom of the page. 6 8-passenger coaches, and this is Upper Falls, maybe, no, Second Falls there, Red Rock, Grand View, Artist Point. Almost looks like maybe it's a Great Falls. And then below that, there's another expense to repairing 4 old bodies, extra parts for something. And we also see an entry where they shipped a whole bunch of wheels back to Concord to have them repaired. Evidently here, this is an entry of October 11th of 1908. And it shows a list of 36 wheels that were sent back to be retired and repainted. And it's giving a bunch of these coach names and their serial numbers here back in 1908. So one of the things I like about this last entry that I just showed you, when all these wheels are sent back to Abbott and Downing to be retired and repainted, is the numbers on these. If you look at the very first one, it says Beehive 20-80. And then down the next one to Old Faithful 20-87. Remember the body that I just showed you with that number 20-82. So this was produced somewhere between Beehive 2280 and Old Faithful 2287. So these were shipped back in October of 08. So my guess is they were shut down for the winter season and they sent these back to get repaired, over the winter so that they could be back in production again by the spring of '09. But what this does is this puts this 2282 coach in that same time frame of Beehive and Old Faithful, whenever that was. But they were used long enough and hard enough that by October of 1908, they were already being sent back for repairs. So just an interesting observation that this 2282 was built in the same time frame as Beehive and Old Faithful. Another thing that's kind of interesting to note is some of the prices, from $550 to $650, $665. You know, back in that day, farm wagons were bringing brand new from $55 to $75. You see these in old catalogs. Well, today they're significantly more. Well, these stagecoaches were bringing in that $550 to $650 area. You know, quite a little more expensive than farm wagons. But if you remember back, those borax wagons cost $900 a piece to build. Even more expensive than these stagecoaches. One of the processes that I went through when trying to figure out what these borax wagons were going to cost when I was asked to give an estimate, I went back and I took $900 in 1880. What is that equivalent today, adjusted for inflation? It actually came out to be really close and accurate. So you could take a $560 or $660 stagecoach back in 1890. What is that stagecoach worth today? It's still pretty accurate, I would bet. Same with a bale of hay. You know, we saw here that a ton was $10 a ton. Well, they didn't have big round bales back then. It would have been in small squares, however it was that they did it. But it's not uncommon today to sell a bale of hay for $10 or more. That's just inflation and what we live with. So anyway, in my process of working with this undercarriage, you know, last week I tore it apart. Well, I've been contemplating it a little bit, and I've been looking at the one hub that is left on the rear axle, and it's caused me to do a little more investigating. Well, on the rear axle of this coach, one side of the axle has a hub left on it. The boxing is seized up to the axle, but the hub is intact, and so I noticed that it still has the mortises where the spokes went in. So I got to looking at the size of these mortises, and they go about right there, and they look like, to me, that they are 1 5/8" spoke. Right in there. That was the first signal that this isn't what I think it was. Well, there was a little plastic bucket that had some parts in it. These are the parts that go over the thorough braces. There's partial hinge to the front driver's boot. There's some iron off of the single trees and the double trees, and there's also some hub bands. Well, this one is kind of interesting. It has an inside band on it, but this one doesn't have it, and this is more like I would expect. They are both the same size. My guess this possibly has been added to it, and it also has this hub band. Well, since it's still seized up, I can't get to the inside, but this should be the outer hub band, and it seems to be just the right size for this hub. My guess this is the inner hub band. Well, when I cut out the pieces for the body and undercarriage that I showed you before, I also started to make a set of wheels, and I got as far as this one. Well, this outer hub band is the same size as this old original hub band. Same diameter. So, if I turn this around, this is the other hub band, and it seems to be the same size band as this original one. So these are an offset spoke. These are 1 5/8 spokes, but these coach wheels have just hub bands on the outer end and on the inner end of the hub. So it appears that these hub bands are most likely not off an 11-passenger coach, but off of an 8-passenger coach. And I have another original wheel off an 11-passenger coach. So this is an original wheel off an 11-passenger Yellowstone Park stagecoach. And if I measure the spokes on these, they're 1 7/8, not 1 5/8. They're also an offset, but the hub is bigger. And when I put this hub band up against it, you can see how much bigger this hub is than the hub that's on this undercarriage. This is an 11-passenger, this is an 8-passenger. So then I went to my reaches that I have cut out, and my suspicion is they're going to be the same. When I lay them on top of each other, they're the same length. You can see I've got them kind of lined up here, and it also lines up here. Lengthwise, they're the same. Widthwise, I'm at 3 inches. This one would show 3 1/8. So as the old saying goes, there's a fly in the ointment. I do not have an 11-passenger undercarriage that goes with the 11-passenger coach. It was brought in that they were a match set, but they are not. So now what? So I had planned on building an 11-passenger along with an 8-passenger. I have that 8-passenger already cut out. This is not an 11-passenger, so what do I do? My options seem to me to be I can take this iron and put it on that undercarriage, since that undercarriage is an 8-passenger. In essence, I would have all this wood already cut out. I would just have to transfer the wood into this or the iron onto that and not have to make new irons. But this leaves an 11-passenger body without an undercarriage, but it would put that wood with original irons. I would still have to fabricate new irons patterned off the 11-passenger body, which they're going to be the same. And I could make new ironed and have one complete 8-passenger coach with the original iron on the undercarriage, new iron on the body. That's an option. Or I could build 2. I could put all new woodwork in this one and new iron in that one. Do I want 2 8-passenger coaches? Again, maybe one for sale, or do I just build one? I have another 11-passenger coach in storage, and I also have another 8-passenger coach in storage as well. So this leaves me with 2 11-passenger bodies and 1/2 of an 11-passenger undercarriage. The undercarriage that I have is the front half. The back half, not that big a deal. I can build that. But I have 2 original sets of 11-passenger irons. So I can put together 2 11-passenger bodies that are original. One undercarriage would be half original iron and half new, and the other would have to be all brand new iron. Then I have my other 8-passenger coach that does not have wood hub wheels, it actually has Sarvin wheels. And it's kind of a unique coach. I would like to keep that together, and I would like to restore that one as well. So, just going to throw this out for you out there to mull over. What do I do? What do I do? 1 8-passenger coach with original iron on the undercarriage and a new body. I have all that wood cut out. I think maybe that's the way I should go. Then I could focus on my second 8-passenger that I would keep, I could still possibly offer this one for sale. And I have two 11 passengers. So, kind of my dilemma. What kind of leads me toward putting this iron on that undercarriage is that it would be more valuable with original irons than an all-new undercarriage with new irons. So I'm kind of thinking that's the way I'm going to go. Another thing I'd like to throw out is you have proven in the past as an audience that you have the ability to do a lot of research on my behalf. It has helped a lot on that mud wagon and other different topics that I've done as well. Maybe you have the time and ability to look around and see just what 2282 coach was. Probably had a name. It was probably bought in a sequence series between the Beehive and Old Faithful. Maybe some of you can ferret that out. We'll see. Anyway, I think that's kind of where we're going to go. I think I'm just going to focus on one 8-passenger coach now and build two 11-passenger coaches down the road. Tell me what you think. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.